I was talking about surviving, and for me, that means my life ain't thriving. Shit ain't going so smooth, I get confused, and I don't know what to do. And sometimes the bullshit, it gets so thick that you feel like you could dive in it, think you will die in it, cause you're sick of getting up and trying again. But every time I find my life in ashes, I said every time I find my life in ashes. I was talking about surviving, and for me, that means my life ain't thriving. Shit ain't going so smooth, I get confused, and I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do.
Lady Zen. Lady Zen, you're on.
Stage, internationally celebrated vocalist,
Lady Zen.
composer, Lady Zen.
Like water being poured from a vessel onto a hard surface. This is my birth mother, Elzira Santos Martins. I was named after my mother. Alzenira is a junior type name for little Elzira. The story of who I am has always begun by stating my birth name. Alzenira Santos Martins Amaral. I was born into a Brazilian family, and at 11 months old, I became a Brazilian orphan. Having a family was not my birthright. The names I was given were changed, the gender I was assigned was challenged, and the family legacies I'm tied to are just as complicated as what's in my name. Alzira was very young when she had me. She's only 15 in this photo. This is the day she left me at the orphanage. What makes a person worth loving? Alzira had no education. She'd been working as a prostitute a few years prior to meeting my father, Idaval Amaral. This is Itaval. Itaval was one of my mother's clients. He was a married man with 8 children by the time he met my mother. Itaval had many wives, lovers, and children. There are 37 of us in total. Itaval was a violent man, and he beat Alzira, even while pregnant with me. Alzira ran. She took me to an orphanage called La Bentonia. These are the little dresses that I give to the orphans there. Same color green as in the Brazilian flag. And these are the same shoes from that photo. Still stained with the red dirt from Maringá. No matter how I tried, I couldn't wear away Brazil once it got into my shoes. There is a memory some say I cannot have. A connection that goes deep into my identity. Tied to my voice. Tied to the emotions of a baby left in a rusty metal crib. And hearing my voice as it cried out as children do, and no one came for me. My tiny body tied to my voice. Helpless, I sat down and folded little arms around my body and laid on my belly and held myself, the rise and fall of my breath. The rise and fall of this soft voice, my voice, carried by my breath through my tears. It sang, it giggled and cooed to soothe my melancholy heart. Sang back love, willing to be tied to the fall and rise of my voice, of my breath, till death. My voice is the tide that carries me back to be.
Sherry, our little singer from Brazil. She is 5 years old and we love her dearly. John and Carrie Glick adopted her before coming home, so she is dedicating these songs to you from Arkansas.
I was born in Portobello, adopted by an American missionary family who moved to Rogers, Arkansas in the 1970s. During the adoption, my name was changed to Sherry Joy Glick. Sherry was brought up in the Nazarene church, and like all good singers, got her start performing on Sunday morning before the sermon. But the story goes, I've always been creative, imaginative, talented. Creative, imaginative, talented. Our church was predominantly white. I don't think there was another person besides me who was from another country. If they were, they kept it quiet. Racist rhetoric wasn't something that we questioned. It's part of our language. It was all around us, but I was different. Creative, imaginative, talented. I flew into unpredictable tantrums and frustration because I didn't really understand what was going on with me. I just knew that emotions were unacceptable. It was like there were two parts of me in direct conflict with the other. I had no way of really understanding what was happening inside of me, and I would lie. I didn't know who or what I was supposed to be, and I would lie in the moment to correct whatever I felt was wrong. No matter how much I prayed or confessed my sins, no matter how much I loved Jesus and Bible stories, I was always on the outside of something because I didn't know who or what I was supposed to be. There was one person who loved me unconditionally. One person in my conflicted little life who said, "You're not like other kids, you're special. You have meaning and purpose." That was Grandpa Simon. He was always watching over me. He was my first fan, my first audio engineer. He used to record me singing for friends and family. And this is the first known recording of me singing. Grandpa Simon was my best friend from the moment I met him. We shared this curiosity and love for people. He never met a stranger. Simon had conversations with people, and he treated them like equals. He was interested in their stories. He was a kind and gentle man. He made the world a lot less lonely and scary for me. Simon died when I was very young, and I remember saying to some girl at the funeral that I didn't know very well that he was my grandpa. And she said, "Oh, he was my grandpa too." And I somehow felt less special. If I didn't belong to Grandpa, then who did I belong to? And if he had other grandkids, then what made me worth loving? One of the strangest things that happened the week of my grandfather's funeral, I was maybe 11 or 12, and I was staying in his home. I was laying on the couch, and I felt uneasy, and I was thirsty, and I called out to my mom and I said, "I'm thirsty," and she said, "Go to sleep." But just then, a glass broke in the kitchen. And my mother yelled from the bedroom, "I told you not to get up. Leave the glass alone, clean it up in the morning, you'll cut yourself." And I was in a near panic, and I responded with, "I didn't move a muscle." The next morning, on the coffee table next to me was a glass of water. My mother looked at it and said, "I thought I told you not to get up." And I said I hadn't moved. It was Grandpa who brought me that glass of water. It was so honest that my mother looked at me completely perplexed. I just walked away. Jesus got a hold of my life and it won't let me go. It won't let me go. The first trophy I won was in 1977. It was a ventriloquist act. I took that act all the way to state competition and it came in second. And I immediately fired the puppet because he wasn't pulling his weight. And I remember that feeling of not dominating the competition. I toured around Arkansas with a gospel youth choir, and we sang at revivals and special events. I sang in every vocal competition I could. Church, local, state, regional. It was thrilling to win all of those trophies that lined the mantle of the fireplace, and I had plaques dripping down my wall. I was a celebrated vocal prodigy, a performing artist at age 7, and all I wanted to do was sing. My relationship with the Glick family was strained. The Glick family gave me a foundation I don't regret having. I mean, I grew up in nice homes. I had everything I wanted, and more. They went to great lengths to support my life as a creative kid. They loved me, and I made them laugh. And we brought joy to each other, but I also remember feeling like a disappointment to the Glicks. I remember the day my father said to me, "You look like a dyke. Stop acting like a dyke." I was maybe 11 or 12. I don't really remember. I didn't even know what a dyke was. I just knew it was bad. Really bad. I felt embarrassed. And I had no idea why. I felt like I was lost and unaccepted. What makes a person worth loving? I was losing my family again. I knew that they didn't trust me. Hell, I didn't even trust myself. Guilt and shame kept me believing that there was something innately wrong with me, that I was messed up, that being part of a family was conditional, and I was pathologically lonely. I was defiant. I'd messily cover my tracks. I was losing my faith in religion and my faith in everyone around me. I couldn't trust anything that I knew about myself. If competition had taught me anything, it taught me that if I wasn't greater than someone, then I was worthless. I didn't trust I had anything of value to offer others. In many ways, I was in need of being rescued from myself. On one hand, praised because of my talents, on the other, struck down because I didn't fit into a straight, white family mold. I was unequivocally queer. This little queer kid. I was neither American or Brazilian. I didn't believe that I would find acceptance anywhere, especially for myself. I was living a dualistic life, and I couldn't manage any of it. The idea of normalcy is burned into the thoughts of family and bring with it such suffering salvation. Transformation will not be found in worshipful palms of those deemed holy, nor will judgment come crashing out of heaven, raining fire. There will only be me, loving you as I do, eternally. Wishful gardenias watch white wedding parties descend the steps of churches as bells chime in gleeful celebration of true love that some say eludes me because the way I love is death. Even in death, chimes won't ring for perverts like me, breathing and writhing in lusts. Will they? Your voyeuristic fire destroys without conscience and uses my bones as tinder, makes smoke of my dreams and ash of my mind. Who was I back then when I was a Christian? How long have I waited and wished to be wedded to one I love? Whoever I was in that dream, it frightens me. The Glick family was transporting this Persian girl to her next gig, and we'd stopped at a hotel overnight to rest. And, she was sitting on the edge of her twin bed, and I was sitting on the edge of mine. I was watching Tom and Jerry cartoons. She was so beautiful. She was the most feminine person I'd ever met. She wore thigh-high stockings, and she had a slip with lace at the bottom. She had long, black, silky hair. She was disrobing to get into the shower. And suddenly she was standing at the periphery of the television. And she said to me, "It's okay to be curious about the way other women look. You can look at me if you like. It was the first time that I ever really looked at another female-bodied person. And she just stood there accepting my gaze, and then she disappeared into the shower. It was the most innocent gesture of acceptance. And that was it. Nothing else was said, and nothing else was switched on, or it was just a beautiful moment. By age 15, there were girls in church that I had crushes on. I had a big crush on the principal's daughter at school. And I guess you could say I've always had kind of a more masculine kind of presentation. And I wanted a boyfriend, like all the other girls, but none of the boys seemed to appreciate my kind of girlishness. When I was 17, I was asked to leave the Glick household. I was no longer a welcome member of the family. The Glicks were through with me. At the height of the conflict with the Glick family, I had just returned from a gospel music talent search in Estes Park, Colorado. I was there because I wanted to break into the Christian music industry as a recording artist. And while I was there, my roommate asked to be reassigned because she didn't want to be in the same room with a lesbian. I wasn't even sure I was a lesbian. I'm not sure how she knew that I was a lesbian. When I got home, I was questioned, interrogated by Carrie about some questionable behaviors. And I was in turmoil. Everything was going wrong. It was hardly a year before I dropped out of school, leaving family, faith, religion, everything behind. These are the first recordings of my songs. No Starting Here was the first poem that began my relationship with music and poetry. The images in the poem relate so strongly, I can feel it corporeally, and I'm transported back to that moment. I began living on my own in a scuzzy studio apartment. I could not find love that wasn't toxic, so I drank and was high most of the time. I had lost everything. I was desperate to be loved, seen, heard. I suffered so deeply. So deeply, I attempted suicide. Within certainty, where the oil leads. That night, when my friends found me, they didn't know what to do. So they loaded me up in the car and drove me back to my parents' house. My mother, Carrie, answered the door.
seeing me in such an unconsolable emotional state. She drove me to the emergency room. She sat with me in the hospital room while the doctors talked to her about what care I would need. I convinced the emergency room doc I wouldn't hurt myself anymore and just wanted to go home. So they asked my mother to be sure I got the help I needed. She agreed and let me come home to recover. I fell into a catatonic depression. The sound of my own voice hurt my ears. I was defeated. At the Glick house, I spent the majority of my time in my room, alone. It's the first time I truly lost connection with my voice. I I began drawing, sculpting with clay as a way to bring myself back from the dead. I created this sculpture of Poseidon lifting an angel out of the water with a broken wing. He was worshipped as the god of navigation. He was emotionally unstable, and yet he was relied upon for safe passage through rough waterways. Art saved my life. Art always saves lives. When I was mentally stable, I was asked to leave the Glick house again. I've not had contact with the Glick family in decades. Probably never will. I grew up in a family who didn't understand me. Constantly had the rug pulled out from under me, and I've been rejected more times than I care to admit. I met a girl from the Pacific Northwest, and we moved across the country to Washington State, and I loved her. Honestly, I was a horrible partner because I was still running away from who I was. Was I a soft butch? Was I a lesbian? In all the queer conversations I had about identity, I never felt queer enough, lesbian enough, trans enough. I wasn't poly or pan, not butch enough, not lesbian, not radical enough. It was better to just be a blank canvas. It only takes a couple of days to change your ways, let things get out of phase, raise your karmic debt to a deficit. Either way, you gotta play. It only takes a couple of days to understand supply and demand, joy then suffering. You see, life comes with its fair share of regrets, you just got to deal with it. It only takes a couple of days to change your pace, fast or slow ain't gonna matter, 'cause steady always gonna win the race. It only takes a couple of days for the clouds to darken up your skyways and get you all caught up in a frenzy. And trust me, that's just enough to betray yourself in the worst ways. It only takes a couple of days to feel afraid, to procure the right ingredients for a pity parade. You get wasted, get laid, put everything off until the next day. But it only takes a couple of days to find a runway where you can sashay, put yourself out on display, just like you're living in your heyday. You see, life can be a magnificent buffet, but you gotta be more careful, honey, with what you're digesting, so you can taste the buffet. Slowly, I began to understand nurturing the smallest seeds of self-love and acceptance. On my 40th birthday, as a gift to myself, I changed my name back to my birth name. Alzenira Santos Amaral de Quezada would now greet every occasion, every accomplishment, every accolade. My nickname, Zen, is the balance of who I am. This whole time I've been searching for it, and there it was, right in the middle of my name. Sometimes I wonder if my life would have the same impact that it's had if my name was still Sherry Joy Glick. I don't have a family. I've always wanted to have a family. But for the Glick family, that meant that I turned my life over to God. That He was at the helm of my life. And no amount of growth or change would be good enough unless there was a Christian God at the helm. The foundation of fundamental religion, having this base, kept me seeking. How long do I have to be lonely until you approve of my moves and I am released from the misgivings, from thoughts that you continue to think of me? When hasn't the plot thickened with time ticking? A race with a narrow escape into a giant room filled with trees and nature and clean water and air. I have watched color drain from my world to shrivel like winter into shadows and bones. I watched my ghost rise like a muertos, its skeleton fingers holding a red shining glass heart that it tucked into my ribcage for safekeeping, while my translucent body voyaged over a battlefield where wars raged for integrity. My partner and I were preparing to move to Athens, Ohio, after I graduated from college. And she said to me, I don't think this career in music is going to work out for you. I mean, you're in your mid-40s, and people in the music industry don't make it in their mid-40s. I think you should start thinking of a different career. She said, you're a really good cook. Maybe you should become a chef. And so I thought about it. I mean, I knew what she was saying. I didn't want to go back to being not worthy of being loved. I wasn't making much money. She'd been financially responsible for us long enough, and I knew I wasn't pulling my weight. I never unpacked a lot of the emotional garbage I was carrying. It's difficult to be happy with someone when they can't be emotionally responsible for themselves. What makes a person worth loving? I was working as a chef, and after a particularly hard shift, I laid across my bed as if I were being crucified. Still in my chef's coat, I began to weep. I wept so hard that my tears filled my ears. And I prayed for the first time in a long time and surrendered, saying, please help me. I'm so miserable. I felt that presence again. The one I'd felt when my grandfather came into the room. It was a feeling of unconditional love, and I felt a smile come over me, and an inner voice spoke to me and said, "Oh, Zen, we never meant for you to feel this sad. We brought all this to you, all the things you asked for. And they were only meant to bring you happiness. You've not sung or written in many years, but we promise that if you will just be the creative entity we intended you to be, we'll take care of the rest." I wiped my tears away and thought, this is crazy. I'm delusional, and said aloud as if someone were listening, "Well, If any of this is true, if you want me to be a creative, then you're going to have to make it abundantly clear to me. The very next day, I was laid off from my job.
Celebrating vocalist, poet, and composer, Lady Zen.
Like water being poured from a vessel onto certainty where that water will heat. I see it shattering while splattering as liquid does. It drips and gets into the most intimate crevices, saturating every strand of me, lubricating rusty arpeggios, spontaneously vocalizing, just 'cause I like to hear the notes. And whether I speak or whether I sing, it begins to pour out of me so abundantly that it won't be contained, it won't dissolve or be drained out of my veins. This is just the way I came. So how can I intellectually comprehend grasping after worthiness without accepting all the richness that resides in me just as easily? Oh, you see, it's the debris of transparency that obstructs what we see. But for too long I have sought your approval through apologizing first, and I never sought retribution second, even for the ill will that you whispered over me like curses when I was too unschooled to know how cruel you could really be. You see, it's hard for me to explain to you plainly how I was given the tools and ammunition to be reckless and dangerous with myself out of desperation and urgency. But I have dug enough inexplicably deep trenches to hide in, to fortify me against any encroachment upon my fate, my lot, or my destiny. But I fear that this ain't enough to protect me, see? I'm grasping again. But no matter what the conflict or the diptych or the horse shit, wisdom and revelation will eventually rain reason on me. It's like a torrential drenching, just like sweating. It drips off my fingertips and it mingles with the scent of a Sharpie pen, and it soaks through quad-ruled composition papers that I have bound tightly, hacked away neatly, all stacked away for another rainy day. But just like water being poured from a vessel onto a hard surface, I am unable to predict with any certainty where that water will be. Like water, like water, like I'm just like water.
Art saved my life. Art always saves lives.